So now we want to look at writing a title for a graph. If you remember from our notes, you know that a good title needs to have 6 components. It needs to have things like who, what, when, where, why, and how. If your title does not include these things, then it is not complete unless your scenario does not give you that specific information. It does you no good to know what we want, but not to know how to do it. So this video is simply to show you how to write a good title. Let's start with this example from our notes. So we're looking at this data table that's talking about the heating of compound X. It happens in time or minutes and degrees Celsius. So let's just start by writing down what we know. Do we know who? No. So none. Do we know what we are trying to show in this graph? Yeah, we're trying to show the change in temperature of compound X. Do we know when this is taking place? Well, we don't have a specific date, but we know that it is over the course of 6 minutes. Do we know where this is happening? No, so we have none. Do we know why this is being done, like for a specific reason? No, so we have none. And do we know how? Yeah, we know that we are changing the temperature through heat. So it's by heating. So now all we need to do to write a title is put these 6 components together in the most logical way that we can. So our graph title can be something like this: the change in temperature, and I'm going to abbreviate, but in your graph title you may not abbreviate. It has to be the whole word, and big letters or big words must be capitalized. So change in temperature of compound X over 6 minutes through heating. That would be our whole title. You can't leave out any of the things. You can't try to shorten it in any kind of way, because if you do, then it's not a complete title. So let's go over one more example so that you have a little more familiarity with it when you start doing your assignments. So if you notice, this is one of your assignments, and we wrote this title together in our face-to-face class, so I want you to have the same thing. So let's go over the scenario, and we'll write down what we know. It says an East Texas game warden was busy checking licenses last year. During the fall and spring, he checked the following number of people for hunting permits during deer and turkey season. So we want to know what a good title would be. Do we know who? Yes, it's an East Texas game warden. Do we know what he was doing? He was checking licenses. He checked the following number of people. Okay. Do we know when he was doing it? Well, it doesn't tell us up here, but in our data table, we can see that it was in October and April, and actually I lied to you, it does tell us when. It says during the fall and spring. So when? Fall and spring, deer and turkey season. Do we know where? East Texas. Do we know why? Well, it doesn't explicitly tell us, so we're not going to assume. So we're just going to say none. And do we know how? He was doing license checks. So let's put this together. Our title should talk about what we're going to do in our graph also. So what are we going to do with these two things? Well, we're probably going to compare them from legal hunters and outlaw hunters. So another thing that we're doing for our what is comparing legal and outlaw. So now let's get started. So our title, let's start with what? It is comparing, or the comparison of legal, and remember I said you couldn't abbreviate, and outlaw hunters. Okay, so we've got that. Let's say when, during the fall and spring deer and turkey seasons, so we've got when, during the fall and spring deer and turkey seasons, by an East Texas game warden through license checks. And you have to have all of those things for it to be considered a good title.